to get some white ball players, I'm going to do that. If it means going an extra step to get some black students in debate and science fairs, I'm going to do that. Because they are committed to having students involved in both academic and athletic competition. Because it sharpens your skills. And we are concerned about that. In other words, let's move away from the varsity approach to the academics, where you only have the top 1 or 2 students representing the school. We believe in the intramural approach. We believe in a class of 30 students, let's have 6 teams of 5 players. Let's have everyone involved in athletics. Let's have everyone involved in academics, because competition sharpens the skills. But you know what's sad? Even schools give more glory to their ball players than their scholars. In other words, for the basketball winners, they get these big trophies. For the debate team, they get these little certificates. Where are the pep rallies for the honor roll? In other words, we give them to the basketball team, but why not to the academic scholars and achievers as well? In other words, we are illustrating where our priorities are. We want to change that priority. We've got to find ways to infiltrate the peer group, to get them all involved in both academic and athletic competition. Some other ideas on this. The University of Michigan did a study when you and I were growing up, and they wanted to find out who was a major influence on children. The University of Michigan reports in 1950 that the greatest influence on children was the home, followed closely by school, then church, then peer group, then television. Now, Gwen, you probably call these the good old days. Home, school, church, peer group, and television. Hold your brothers, we give you 1980, 1985. Home is still #1, but the streets, the peer group, that's what we're talking about, is now in the #2 position. Television and video games are #3, predicting #1 sometime this year. School has now dropped down to the 4th position, and I'm sorry you can't find church anywhere on a map. A whole lot has happened in 30 years. I want to again pause and look at the peer group, your greatest source of competition. In other words, the power of the peer group is because they look like each other. You will always emulate those people that look like you. What am I getting at? To connect it to the classroom? I became a writer to make sure I'm not misquoted. A white teacher can teach a black child math because expectations transcend race. Don't misquote me. I'm in no way saying that a white teacher cannot teach a black child because expectations transcend race. But a white teacher cannot teach a black child how to be black. In other words, in order to be a black engineer, you need to see a black engineer. The power of the peer group, they look like each other. In other words, when I ask black boys across the country to name me 5 black male entertainers, they don't have a problem. Name 5 black male athletes, they don't have a problem. But when I ask them to name me 5 black men with college degrees, they have all kinds of problems. In other words, if we cannot increase black staff at your school, then what I recommend you do, like what St. Louis is doing, is have a central role model program. So we begin to bring in black role models on a regular basis. So we don't want to take the white teacher out of class, but if he or she has to stay there, then we want every week or at least once a month role models coming in so our youth can see black achievers. And we need to centralize that kind of program. The power of the peer group, they look like each other. Another secret about the peer group. You see, in most classes, let me do it this way, I'll use another sheet. In most classrooms, you have 30 students and you have 1 teacher. And it's almost 30 against 1. That's how it's phrased. 30 against 1. You always lose with odds like that. We have got to find ways to get the odds in our favor. In other words, I recommend that a teacher identify who the leaders are. You see, we must get them to buy into our value system. We must find ways to infiltrate the peer group, to inculcate our value system into theirs. And that, first of all, means identifying who the leaders are. And let me give you a secret. The leaders don't walk around saying, with a t-shirt, I'm the leader, I'm running the class. They deal with body language. They deal with eye contact. And so the first step is, do you know how to identify the leader? And then once you do, either before school, after school, or some break, pull him or her over to the side and try to inculcate your value system into theirs. Then they will begin to proselytize the other parts of the peer group. We have got to get more of the peer group buying into our value system. You see, the peer group does not have to be negative. It can also be positive. The question is, which value system they're going to promote. We have to begin to look at those kinds of issues. And so we recommend these kinds of strategies for the peer group. We recommend that, first of all, we begin to put more priorities on our academic achievement over athletic achievement. We also recommend moving away from the varsity approach to the intramural approach. We recommend that you identify who the leaders are. We recommend we bring in more role models to our program, provide pep rallies for academic achievement. But my major concern here is that schools are more than academic institutions. They are also social institutions. It is sad to say this, but you could have been doing your job. Parents could have been doing their job. And it all go for naught because the Black and Hispanic peer group are reinforced what kind of gym shoes they wear, what kind of clothes they wear, how well they fight or dance, and not academic achievement. This is not theoretical. I was in honors classes when I was in high school, and I was so influenced by my peer group, I flunked the whole marking period intentionally, trying to get kicked out. Had it not been for my father, who then kicked my butt, I'd had some very serious problems realizing his size 11 on my rear end was more important than my peer group. But let me give you a secret. When you want to reinforce academic achievement, especially for Black boys, it becomes suicidal if he's not also involved in the martial arts. In other words, I was still in honors programs, but I was allowed to run track and also martial arts because my peer group did not respect my honors achievement, but they did respect my martial arts belt. We have to begin to look at those kinds of areas. Before we move on to the next area with regards to parents, any comments about the peer group? Its tremendous impact on academic achievement. Any comments or questions? You got 30 seconds, so I'm moving on. Yes, sir. First name?
Michael.
Michael.
What can teachers do to influence this in the context of a classroom situation?
Well, I tried to mention a couple, Michael. One, I wanted you to identify who the leaders were and begin to sell your value system to them. Secondly, I wanted you to bring more role models into your classroom so they can see Blacks in high professions that have advanced themselves. Three, I wanted you to provide, or with your school, to provide more academic achievement in terms of glorifying that, in terms of pep rallies and trophies and the like. Any other comments about the peer group? A major source of competition. Another area, parents. We're very concerned about the role of parents with regards to our schools. And one of our concerns, there's a distinction between involvement and support. These two words are not the same, but they're used synonymously. And we want to begin to look at that. Parental involvement and parental support. Parental involvement is attending a PTA meeting, baking baked goods for a bake sale, selling raffle tickets for a raffle sale. Look, if I never attend your PTA meeting, but I monitor my child's peer group, I monitor television, we go to the library on a regular basis, that's support. Now, I know you want them both, but between the two of them, I sincerely believe support is a lot more significant than parental involvement. But I do agree, after we get the support, we also need the involvement. So I've begun to look at Head Start, to begin to look at Chapter 1, to look at some effective principles in terms of what they do with our students. And I found there are certain things that they do. First of all, we have to find ways to market our programs. I often ask principals, how many parents are going to be there tonight when I speak to them? Well, I don't know. I sent out 1,000 flyers. That tells me right there they don't know a thing about Black culture. Because the rumor is, if you want to make sure Black folks don't find out about it, put it in the book. In other words, we are not a written people primarily. It's the oral tradition. If you want me there, call me up. So 1,000 flyers may only generate 10 parents. But a personal invitation, a personal phone call, that's what Head Start does. That's what Chapter 1 does. So they use, first of all, the oral tradition. They find ways to communicate in other ways besides a printed flyer. And then secondly, who determined what the workshop should be about? You see, most schools teach parents the same way they teach children. Well, we decide for them what the workshop should be about. That's a mistake. In other words, if you know that parents are younger these days, are less mature, are changing demographics, then before giving them a workshop on their child's development, why don't you give them one on their own development, on relationships? If you want Black men to be there, give them a workshop on a conspiracy to destroy Black boys or how to find a job. In other words, one school district in this country, Cleveland Heights, has a 50-50 Black-white school population, but a 97% white PTA. They wanted to bring me in to get more parents to come out, but they were concerned with the title. The title says developing positive self-images and discipline in Black children. If they kept the word Black in, the white parents may not show up. But if they don't keep the word Black in, the Black parents may never attend. They keep the word Black in and broke a record that night. And Black parents say it was the first you finally gave me a workshop about me. Now, of course, let me be honest. There were very few white parents there, only about 43 of them, about 400 Black parents. So the next day, at PTA council, we're still working on how to get both groups together. But we at least solved the objective. We got more Black parents to come out. In other words, what I'm really getting at with regards to this is that Black parents have told me, Jawans, I know I need to be there. But if all we're going to discuss is last month's minutes, some budgetary changes, and a couple of personnel changes with a boring speaker, I'm simply not going to be there. I gave you a clue, a boring speaker. Remember in the oral tradition, the strength of the black church, a charismatic speaker. If you want black pianists to be there, not only have an interesting topic, but also the speaker has to be one that's able to keep their attention. It's unfortunate we have to do this, but we do. And we have to find ways to continue those kind of marketing efforts.